A core tenet of Stoic practice is the courage to see reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. And today, we must apply that courage to one of life's most painful realities, betrayal. There is a truth that most men find difficult to face. Women often cheat differently than men. It is rarely a sudden, impulsive act. It is frequently a process of slow, deliberate detachment and internal justification that happens in silence. By the time a man sees the physical evidence, the true betrayal has already been occurring in her heart for months, or even years. This is why so many good men feel blindsided. It is not because the signs were not there. It is because they were operating on a set of flawed assumptions and chose to ignore the evidence that contradicted them. But betrayal does not appear from thin air. It grows in the fertile soil of specific conditions, 3 specific conditions that, once they collide, make infidelity almost inevitable. If you do not understand these conditions, you are operating in darkness, vulnerable to the illusions of hope and denial. But if you do understand them, you will be equipped to see the danger signs long before the line is ever crossed. This guide is your tool for clear-eyed perception. The goal is not to teach you how to control her loyalty. That is an external and forever outside your power. The goal is to teach you how to refuse to be a victim of your own denial. It is to equip you with the wisdom to protect your own dignity, your peace, and your time. We begin by dissecting the very word that causes the most confusion, the word that traps so many men in false hope, the word love. Part 1T, the foundation. Why love? Is not a shield. Can a woman look you in the eyes, whisper, "I love you," and still betray you behind your back? The uncomfortable truth, the first dose of reality a man must be willing to swallow, is yes, absolutely. Too many men cling to the illusion that love automatically equals loyalty. But if you have lived long enough, you already know the two do not always travel together. And when it comes to women, this gap between the word and the action can be devastating. The problem begins with definitions. Men usually have a singular, almost tunnel vision idea of what love means. For most men, love is passion, desire, closeness, and physical connection. It is the fiery, intoxicating love the ancient Greeks called eros. If eros is alive, he feels secure. If it is gone, he feels abandoned. But women often see love through a wider, more complex lens. And if you do not understand these different facets, you will never see why a woman can cheat and still, in her own mind, claim she loves you. The second form of love is philia. This is the deep bond of friendship, the calm, steady connection between equals. When couples have been together for years and the initial fire of passion cools, it is often philia that remains. She may still love you in this way, as her best friend, her partner in life, but this is not the kind of love that stops her from seeking passion elsewhere. The third is storge. This is the natural, familial affection, like that between parents and children. It is unconditional and not based on merit. It is the love of deep familiarity and shared history. A woman can feel storge for you, for the family you have built, and still feel an aching emptiness for the partner you have ceased to be. The fourth is agape. This is selfless, giving love, often compared to the love of God for humanity. It is love as a principle offered freely without expectation. Some women hold on to agape as a moral duty, even while betraying you in practice. Now, here is the critical part. When you ask a woman if she still loves you, and she says yes, she might genuinely mean it. She may be offering you the deep friendship of philia, when what you desperately crave is the passionate fire of eros. She may see no contradiction in her actions, because in her mind, her definition of love for you remains intact. Meanwhile, you are left confused, trying to reconcile her words with actions that do not line up. That is why so many men stay in relationships long after the trust is broken. They hear the words, "I love you," and they hang on to them like a life raft, not realizing the ship has already sunk. That is the blind spot. That is where men get trapped. So understand this first principle. Love, in the way she may define it, is not a guarantee of loyalty. If you keep believing it is, you will never see the betrayal coming until it is far too late. Now that you understand why love doesn't always mean loyalty, Let's cut straight into the 3 real conditions under which women cheat. Part 20. The 3 conditions for betrayal. Condition 1. When she craves variety and feels starved. You have probably heard the old cliché, men cheat for variety, women cheat for emotion. And most men nod along, comforted by the dangerous lie that women are naturally more loyal, that they don't crave change the way men do. Here is the truth. Women also crave variety. They crave novelty, excitement, and the thrill of being desired by someone new. They just mask it better and, more importantly, they justify it differently. When a woman feels starved inside her relationship, whether it is a starvation of physical intimacy, emotional attention, or simple appreciation, she starts looking outward. And unlike a man who might pursue novelty for the thrill alone, a woman often justifies it as a way to fill a void. She tells herself she is not abandoning her marriage or her partner. She is simply outsourcing what she is not getting at home. Picture this. She still cooks dinner. She still tucks the kids into bed. She still smiles across the table at you. On the surface, she is the perfect wife. But late at night, while you are sleeping, she is on her phone, texting another man. Not because she doesn't care about her family, but because the hunger inside her for feeling seen, for feeling desired, has grown unbearable. That quiet longing becomes a secret life. This is where men get blindsided. You think as long as you are providing, as long as the bills are paid, you are doing your job. But a relationship does not run on autopilot. If she feels unseen, untouched, or emotionally ignored, she will find someone who makes her feel alive again. It is not a question of whether you are a good man. It is a question of whether you are meeting the deep, primal needs she values most. Now, this does not excuse betrayal. It explains the psychology behind it. A woman might stay in her marriage for years while secretly feeding her desire elsewhere. She convinces herself that she is protecting her family, that this double life is the lesser of 2 evils. She gets to keep her stability while chasing her cravings in the shadows. The irony is brutal. She can justify it in her mind as a way of saving the relationship. If I can just get this need met somewhere else, she tells herself, I won't have to leave him. Meanwhile, you are being quietly replaced, not all at once, but piece by piece. By the time you notice, the emotional bond between you is already cracked beyond repair. The lesson here is a harsh one. When you do not step up to fulfill her emotional and intimate needs, someone else will. That is not fear-mongering. That is reality. Condition 2. When her love and respect slowly fade away, a woman almost never leaves suddenly. Long before she walks out of the house with her suitcase, she has already walked out in her heart. That is the cruel difference men rarely see coming. By the time you notice her coldness, her distance, or her silence, she has been detaching for months, sometimes years. It does not always start with another man. It often starts with you. Maybe you thought you were being a strong leader, but you slipped into being controlling. Maybe you thought being busy at work was noble, but she just felt invisible. Maybe you assumed love was a permanent state, so you stopped putting in the effort, the small gestures, the simple acts of presence that once made her light up. Whatever the reason, the slow, silent erosion of her respect is what ultimately kills her love. On the outside, she might keep up the facade. She will say, I'm fine. She will laugh at family gatherings. She will go through the motions of being your partner. But inside, there is a widening emptiness, a void where affection and admiration used to live. She no longer looks at you with respect. She looks at you like a roommate, a burden, or someone she simply has to endure. And here is the chilling part. Once a woman truly loses respect for you, regaining it is nearly impossible. That is why, for many women, cheating becomes less about pleasure and more about escape. It is not always a sudden spark with another man. It is the slow drip of disappointment, the suffocating weight of unmet needs, until she finally convinces herself, I deserve to feel alive again. When her respect dies, when her affection dries up, the door to betrayal swings wide open. This is why men so often feel blindsided. You thought things were fine because she told you they were. But women are often experts at maintaining a peaceful exterior while secretly disconnecting internally. By the time she acts out, she has already built her emotional exit strategy. Understand this. Once a woman has emotionally checked out, leaving her will hurt you more than it hurts her, because she has already been gone for a long time. Love does not die overnight. It withers when respect fades, when admiration is replaced with resentment, and when closeness is replaced with a cold, deafening silence. Condition 3: when fear and circumstances push her into a safety net. Not every act of betrayal is born from a lack of love or a burning passion for someone new. Sometimes, it is born out of fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of financial instability, fear of what friends and family will say. A woman does not always cheat because she is deeply in love with someone else. Sometimes she cheats because she feels trapped and powerless in the life she already has. This is where the psychology of the safety net comes in. Instead of facing the terrifying freefall of leaving a long-term relationship, she clings to the stability you provide while secretly building a backup plan with someone else. She does not see it as abandoning you. In her mind, she sees it as cushioning her own fall. That third party becomes her transition, a soft landing zone she can step into when the weight of her unhappiness becomes unbearable. It can be as subtle as venting to a male co-worker after a fight with you. You might dismiss it as just talking, but over time, that outlet grows into an emotional bond. That bond becomes her lifeline. Before you know it, the arguments you brushed off at home are fueling the intimacy she is building elsewhere. Every misunderstanding, every cold night of silence, every careless word, it all pushes her closer to someone who feels safer, kinder, or simply more attentive. The tragedy is that in her mind, this can make a twisted kind of sense. She tells herself she is protecting the family by not filing for divorce. She convinces herself she is doing the responsible thing by staying, while still reaching for a connection that keeps her sane. But what she doesn't admit is that each step she takes with him is one step further away from you. That other man was not just a fling. He was the bridge she built to walk away from you, without ever feeling the terror of being alone. Here is the brutal truth. When a woman feels unsafe, emotionally or practically, she will not always walk out the front door. Sometimes, she slips out a side exit, into the arms of a man who offers her the illusion of security. And every time you dismiss her concerns, every time you leave a conflict unresolved, you are pushing her closer to that escape route. Part 3: the early warning system. The 6 signs. This is the part you need to hear carefully, because it might save you years of blindness. Men often ignore the red flags because facing them feels unbearable. But denial is the fastest way to become the last man in the room to realize the truth, so pay attention. Individually, each of these signs might have an innocent explanation. But when they begin to cluster together, when you see a pattern forming, you are no longer looking at coincidences. You are looking at a system of betrayal unfolding. The first sign: her phone becomes untouchable. It used to sit on the counter face up. Now, it is glued to her hand. She carries it into the bathroom. She sets it face down at dinner. It transforms from a tool into a private vault. And the change is sudden. That is not paranoia. That is a shift in behavior. The second sign: mysterious disappearances. There are stretches of time when you simply cannot reach her. Her explanations for these gaps are vague and don't add up. She was busy with work. But her story has holes. She was with a friend, but you never hear about that friend again. She is investing her time elsewhere. The third sign: a sudden obsession with her appearance. She starts spending extra time getting ready for routine errands. Her wardrobe shifts. Her makeup becomes bolder. The change does not align with any new job or special occasion. She is reinventing herself, but not for you. The fourth sign: an unexplained shift in attitude. The warmth that once defined her is replaced with distance, irritation, or coldness. Little things you do suddenly annoy her. The way she talks to you changes, sharper, more dismissive. This is the result of emotional detachment. This is a critical section, and it demands brutal honesty with oneself. Many men here have likely seen one or more of these signs, but chose to rationalize them away. In the comments, share one sign you previously ignored, that in hindsight was a clear warning. Your story could be the wake-up call another man needs to finally face the truth. The fifth sign lies, even about small things. You catch her stories not lining up. She gives unnecessary, elaborate details to cover her tracks. The dishonesty becomes a habit, a reflex, because she is already living a double life. The sixth sign, communication collapses. Remember when you used to talk daily? Now you are begging for scraps of her attention. Conversations are short, distracted, or forced. That is not business. That is disinterest. Communication is the lifeline of a relationship. When she cuts it, you are watching the cord being severed in real time. Your gut will usually sense these patterns before your mind accepts them. Do not silence that instinct. Trust your perception. Part 4. The core difference in betrayal. Men and women do not cheat the same way. This is one of the most dangerous misconceptions you can hold. When a man cheats, it is often impulsive. It can be driven by opportunity or ego. He can often step outside the relationship and then step right back in, because he has the capacity to compartmentalize the act from his core emotional commitments. That does not make it harmless, but it does make it different. Women operate differently. For most women, cheating is rarely a spontaneous accident. It is a process. It is a build-up. They think about it, they wrestle with it, they justify it. By the time she physically crosses the line, she has already been emotionally gone for a long time. She is not just chasing a thrill. She is seeking a connection, a validation, or an exit. That is why when women cheat, it often cuts deeper. Because it is rarely just physical, it is emotional. What you do not see is that her betrayal is layered with months, maybe years of emotional detachment. She did not stumble into someone else's arms. She walked there, step by step, while you were still convinced everything was fine. That is why when men finally uncover the truth, it feels like a bomb has gone off. You thought you were losing her attention slowly. In reality, you lost her heart long before you ever discovered the evidence. By the time she is physically unfaithful, the emotional bridge back to you is already burned. Women rarely cheat without feelings being involved. And those feelings do not just vanish once the affair is exposed. That is why so many men struggle to win her back after betrayal, while she often feels almost relieved it is out in the open. For her, the act of cheating was not the beginning of the end. It was the conclusion of a long, silent journey away from you. So stop projecting your idea of cheating onto her. See it for what it is, a different, deeper kind of betrayal. One that does not just steal loyalty, but steals the very bond you thought was unbreakable. Now, you have seen the reality for what it is. Women do not just cheat out of nowhere. It happens when she craves variety and feels starved, when her love and respect for you fade into silence, and when fear pushes her to build a secret exit plan. You have been given the map of betrayal, the locked phone, the sudden disappearances, the lies, the coldness. But here is the final, gut-wrenching truth. Men are almost always the last to know. Not because the signs were not there, but because we often choose to live in denial rather than face a painful reality. The truth is brutal, but it is also freeing. You cannot control whether a woman chooses to betray you. That is, and always will be, outside of your power. You cannot force loyalty out of someone who has already left in her heart. What you can control is your awareness, your standards, and your response. You can choose to stop ignoring your gut. You can choose to pay attention to patterns instead of clinging to her excuses. And most importantly, you can choose not to beg for the scraps of love from someone who has already served a feast to another man. If this guide has given you a difficult but necessary clarity, then like this video. Share it with a man who may be choosing denial over truth. And in the comments, share your thoughts on this difficult topic. Because this is a space for men to learn and face these hard truths together. Subscribe to the Stoic Manhood Guide for more raw truths about relationships and the principles to navigate them with strength and integrity. Remember, no matter how painful it feels to confront, the truth will never hurt as much as choosing to stay blind.